So, hey everybody, welcome to the PM Pro Show. I have with me here Karen Ngo. She is actually a CEO communications manager at Microsoft, and I know she'll fill me in and update me more on how that works. But also, she has a #1 ranked career blog called kkarenism and is a strong believer and promoter of the career walking deck, which is, we'll learn more about it. It's a visual storytelling tool that's helped job seekers worldwide land senior roles and transition. So, Karen, thank you so much for joining us on the PM Pro Show.
Super excited. Thanks, Robert.
Yep. So here at PM Pro Show, we care about bridging the gap between the battlefield and the boardroom. And first, Karen, I'd like to ask about you, right, to get to know you more. You are a CEO comms manager at Microsoft. It's one of the biggest companies in the world. You've talked about how you felt grounded, that your job doesn't make you you, even though you work at such a big company. And that you also care about like this mindset, like it's like 1% improvement, right? So first of all, can I ask you a little bit more about your philosophy? How did you even get into that?
Yeah, so actually, I developed my personal philosophy of growing 1% every day through finding inspiration to share with the world way back in my first year at Microsoft. So this was 2020 during the pandemic. And one of my mentors suggested that I take this high performance mindset course with Dr. Michael Gervais. And that's actually where I learned the importance of really being grounded in who you are. And it's not just your job title, it's not just the company you work at. There's so many different things where it needs to really come back to you. And does it align to your values and your personal philosophy? And once I developed that, I realized that it really helps me make a lot of career decisions and life decisions.
So then I'd like to ask you this then. How did your journey into Microsoft even begin? What was the pre-time before that?
For sure. So actually, I joined Microsoft through the Aspire program, which is the new grad program for anyone who is within 12 months of graduation. And for me, I actually never even thought about applying to Microsoft until I decided to go to a conference. It was the Collision Conference in Toronto, Canada, back in 2019. And I was like, you know what? I've always been interested in technology. I want to learn more about it. And so coming to this conference, I actually happened to walk past the Microsoft booth. And from there, I met a couple people who were in the Aspire program and they told me about it. And then I also talked about how great it was to work at Microsoft. And so as a new grad, I was like, wow, this seems really interesting. So I decided to put my name in the hat and apply for the job and go for an Aspire position. And then I actually went off to Singapore for my final semester. And I haven't heard anything back. So I was just like, oh, probably didn't get the job. It's just a typical rejection. But then while I was abroad in Singapore, I actually got a recruiter screening. And from there, I was, preparing my interviews. And when I told them that I was in Singapore, I thought they were going to just interview me virtually for like the final round of interviews, but they decided to invest in flying me all the way from Singapore back to
Wow.
Canada. They paid for all the expenses. And I think that really showed me that even though they didn't know me that much, they were willing to invest in me and my career and they saw my potential. And that's what really sold me on Microsoft being an amazing employer because they were willing to invest in that without even knowing me that much. And so that entire experience was very stressful because we were trying to figure out all these logistics. But seeing that really showed that they believed in me. And so that made me believe in myself too.
Was this a work conference? Was this offsite? How did you hear about this conference? Do you remember?
Yeah. So actually, I was working in oil and gas at the time as like an intern while I was still in school. And I heard about the conference. It might have been by chance because I was just interested in technology and it might have popped up on my social or someone at work mentioned it. But then when I saw it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to invest in this. Like it was a few $100s to buy a ticket. And as a student, that was quite a big investment. But I
Yeah.
was just really interested in finding different opportunities, understanding the future of technology. So I decided to buy a ticket and fly to the conference across the country.
So this is actually going to, I think, perfectly segue into my other question, which was the networking that you did, and also, I guess, the question of the hidden job market. Out of all the jobs that are posted that we see, I think 20 to 30% of those actually are the available job pool, and that there's around 70 to 80% of jobs that aren't posted, that aren't known about, until people actually have conversations and network. Are you able to share a little bit more about how that even works at all?
For sure. I really believe in this concept of a hidden job market, and it really exists because a lot of hiring managers, they have something called a talent slate where they're already thinking about who is going to be the next person that's going to be replacing different people on their team. And it's not because they're looking to replace people on their team, they just need to understand the talent pipeline because if someone, decides to leave the team, they, retire or anything like that, they need to be ready as a people manager to bring someone else on. And so great leaders are always looking for good talent. And how they identify that talent is through word of mouth. It could be through networking. If you're meeting with them and you make a really strong impression, they'll keep you in the back of their mind. Or if they are talking to other managers and they hear how great you are, they may actually reach out to you and try to learn more about you and whether you're a fit for their team. And so it's through these organic conversations, whether you're initiating them or whether it's through meeting people at a conference or in meetings and different events, that you start forming this personal brand. And because you're creating visibility for yourself and other people are feeding into that and also amplifying that personal brand, that's where you attract opportunities. And that's where leaders and other teams will actually come to you and say, hey, in a few months, we're going to be opening up this job opportunity. We actually want to start interviewing you now and seeing if you're a fit. And this is actually how you get ahead of all the other job postings. Because once a job posting is out there, chances are a hiring manager might already have somebody in mind. And so it may be too late by the time you apply on the job website. But if you can get
Yeah.
ahead of that and be a part of the talent pipeline, that's where you have a competitive edge.
You are an avid pusher of this idea called the career walking deck, right? I've heard people mention maybe having a website or maybe having like something other than a resume. So, first of all, what is a career walking deck and what made you so passionate about that?
Yes, that's a great question. I'm very passionate about this topic. So, I would describe a career walking deck as the visual version of your resume and cover letter that you'd actually bring into a job interview. And so, today, I would never walk into a job interview without preparing one because I think number one, it really helps you prepare. Just because as you are preparing the career walking deck, you're thinking from the lens of a hiring manager and how can I stand out to them? What would they care about? And how can I show and highlight those things on my career walking deck? And then the second part is when you go into a career walking deck with one, you're actually surprising and delighting the interviewer because not a lot of people do this yet. And how I learned about this was when I had my first 100 coffee chats at Microsoft, I noticed that the senior leaders and the highest performers always had something called a career walking deck, or they would call it a pitch deck or like visual slides and about me page. But I kind of came around this concept called a career walking deck. And I was like, this is very interesting because they're using it to introduce themselves in interviews, in presentations. And I think from there, when I started interviewing, I was like, I'm going to prepare one too because I want to stand out. I see an opportunity to leverage this even more so than other people have. That's actually what helps me transition from a sales operations role into a corporate communications role in our headquarters without any formal comms experience because I was able to show the hiring manager that I was really excited for this role. I was really passionate. I was willing to go above and beyond. And I was also able to tailor my career story and show those transferable skills that applied to the role that I was applying for.
I definitely understand that idea of saying, hey, you have to have something when you come in to really, you said, like make the personal connection and surprise them. You'll be surprised how easy it is for people to remember if you make a personal connection. Right. And so that career walking deck, using that as a personal connection piece. Let me take the devil's advocate and say, how important really is it to surprise them, right? At all?
I think the reason why the surprise and delight effects work so well is because when you go into a job interview, you always expect the same things. Someone's going to show up looking kind of polished, they have their standard tell me about yourself. But then when you're like, hey, actually, I prepared an entire presentation for you, can I share my screen or can I, bring it out in this in-person interview? They will get, caught off guard. And I think that's what's going to give them pause and be like, let me see what's going on here. That little seconds spark of curiosity is what's going to hook them in. And then when you have a very polished career walking deck and it's exciting and you show your enthusiasm, they will buy into that energy. That's where you're going to make that personal connection because they're like, wow, I really want to work with Robert. He seems like a really cool guy, and that's what hiring decisions are based off of. It's not just about skills, it's not just about experience. Because I've talked to so many hiring managers who say that if they had two candidates of similar skills, or maybe one has the lack of skills, but they have a big growth mindset and they seem really cool and interesting, they would probably invest in that other person just because they seem like they would be a better fit for the team.
Now, with Career Walking Deck, people can actually find it from your Substack, right? Or they could follow you on LinkedIn and figure out a way to find it there.
Yes, they can. So I have a free template that's available to anyone who subscribes to my monthly newsletter. And so that's a really good starting point. But I would say if for anyone who is curious about what it is and like why it's important to have one, just think about like the confidence building. Because oftentimes when you go into a job interview, you're already pretty nervous. You're just like, oh, I really don't want to mess this up. I want to make a good, strong impression. And so just having a career walking deck in your back pocket, even if you don't end up using it, is really much a career confidence booster because you're just like, hey, if I freeze, I have something that I can rely on. I can
Yeah,
pull it
you
up.
have it
I can
practiced.
quickly point them to certain things I really want to highlight. And I think that's what really helps, especially when you're making a career transition, or maybe you've been in the job market for a while and you're just like really losing that confidence in today's job market, which a lot of people are. And so it's one of those things that's really going to help you feel more confident and just show up better for yourself.
Let's say someone doesn't, or just not prepared, they don't feel ready, or maybe even, I'll use the word scared, so to speak, to start on that Career Walking Deck. Is there a specific part that you would have them start if they had to start one place? And is there a part that you find your favorite?
Yes, I think a big part about creating a career walking deck is like you're thinking, oh my God, it's more work for me. Like I'm already preparing for the interview questions. I'm already preparing my resume, all that stuff. Like, do I really need to do this other thing? And so if you really are like time crunched and you don't see the point of it just yet, I will say creating that one pager is really helpful. A one pager is very versatile. It's like your about you slide. It highlights some of your top skills, your
I
aspirations, your
think I do have that. Can I
experiences.
show a picture of that for our viewing
Yeah, please
listeners?
do.
Let's see. If I share my screen real quick, here we go.
Mhm.
It should look like this, the About Me page.
Yes, that's it. And this is just like a really good starting slide, just to bring into a coffee chat, even, or just to introduce yourself. And for me, I have a much more comprehensive one. I'll actually add in like my Myers Briggs and like some of the certifications I've gotten. So you can really build it out. But this simple slide here is a good starting point if you're still intimidated by taking all the time and energy into creating one. And so that's also why I offer the template for free so that people have something to work off of and they can just plug and play.
No, thank you so much for that, Karen. I think you also believe in like the 30, 60-day onboarding plan.
Yes, it's my favorite part of the career walking deck. And I love to bring it up at the end of a job interview because you want to really close with a strong impression. So, usually at the end of an interview, you'll be asked, do you have any questions for me? And that's when you say, I do. I prepared a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding plan based off of all my research. And I'd love to hear your feedback on if it's aligned with your vision of success or if there's something I need to change. And then you'd show this and it'd have a list of steps and different actions, goals that you'd have. If you were to get the job in your first 90 days, how do you want to make an impact? And I think hiring managers love this because they see initiative and they see hunger. They're like, this person wants to succeed. And I think as a candidate, it's very valuable because when they give you feedback, you can then take that, update your career walking deck, and then send it in your thank you email. And that just shows more initiative, more interest, and more proactive follow up. And I think that's what really sets you apart because other candidates are asking, what does it mean to be successful in this role? But you're already trying to define that with them. And so they'll start seeing you more as a collaborator and someone who's already part of the team because they're envisioning you succeeding in the role.
Yeah. And so when you say have this like 30, 60, 90-day onboarding, of course, there's always intentionality behind like going into an interview. But are there some of the
Mhm.
things that you could say maybe are a little bit more repeatable that like, hey, you don't have to like reinvent the wheel every time you do this?
Yes, I think in general, for me, I prepare a different career walking deck for every job that I'm applying for, but it's still based off of many of the same elements.
Mm,
Like the biggest thing is I'll look at the job posting and I will think from the lens of a hiring manager. What are the three most important skills and experiences that the hiring manager is looking for based off of
mm.
this job posting? And then I'll make sure that I emphasize those themes on my career walking deck. And then when I go into the interview and I'm answering questions, those are the three things I will center my narrative around. So that's one thing that can make it a little bit easier. And I would say in general, just having one version ready, like that one pager, you just make little small tweaks every time. Over time, it gets a little bit easier and easier. And you can also leverage your resume. So I don't know if you've heard of Gamma, but you can actually insert or upload a copy of your LinkedIn profile or your resume, and you can ask it to generate a career walking deck for you. And it'll actually go ahead and do that. And then from there, you can make a few of those tweaks, and it's completely free.
That's an awesome tool. I'll remember that. And that's probably going to be something very worthwhile, especially for service members.
Yes, and then we also have, like, Copilot, so you can actually have the job posting, and then you have your Copilot up, and you can ask it, like, "Hey, based off this job posting, how can I create a career walking deck that will fit this?" And it'll actually give you a lot of suggestions. You can actually use it to coach you through and give you feedback on your interview questions and answers, so that's another tool that you can use for free.
Yeah. Now, speaking of using AI or really just technology in general right now, Microsoft has been helping in terms of, I think it's called the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy. So
Mhm.
for transitioning service members or service members looking to elevate their skills, right? That's one of our pillars. This is actually a program that they can, learn aspects and even get some Microsoft certification after it into certain specific job roles and careers. So I think you have been helping with that. And so what I would first like to ask you is, how did you learn about that aspect? Because, you could be working at Microsoft, but not in this specific academy. Can you educate me
Mhm.
more on the MSSA part at all?
For sure. MSSA is a great program we have to support veterans who are transitioning and want to gain professional experience or are interested in the tech world. And so, actually, I was approached by the organizing team to do a workshop with their members. And so, I've been doing that over the past couple or few years now on career walking decks because I think one of the biggest challenges that service members have or military veterans have is they have so much experience. They don't know how to translate it into the corporate world or into a professional setting. And so Career Walking Deck does a really good job of that because it helps you tell your career story. And this is where you can say, I have all these transferable skills and experiences, and this is where I can add a lot of value to your team. And actually, my manager, she is a military veteran, and now she works in the office of the CEO. So I think that's super cool because it shows how much cool experience and how much relevant experience you have that can take you very far in your career, especially at a huge company like Microsoft or in big tech or in any industry, honestly, because you learn a lot of organizational skills and just how to navigate complexity, problem solving, making decisions. All of those are critical to succeeding in the professional environment.
So in terms of like with AI Skills Navigator, what are some of the skilling opportunities that you've noticed when talking with veterans or using during the MSA program?
For sure. I think there's a lot of opportunity to use AI, of course. And so this AI Skills Navigator is something that the Microsoft Learn team recently launched. And essentially, if you just go in and say, hey, I'm currently a serving member and I'm interested in learning more about this piece of technology, I want to enter this industry, etc. You can actually prompt it to give you a custom learning path. And from there, it'll give you different videos from Microsoft Learn, LinkedIn Learning, could be from YouTube, other Academy websites. And it'll be a curated playlist for you to go through and upskill based off of the goals you give it and based off of your current role and your aspiring role. And I think that's a really great way for you to actually start understanding where can I upskill and invest in my learning and development, but not have it be so generalized for anybody, but actually targeted to what you want to go.
There are a lot of programs where it's like you see several different glide paths, but just having a little bit extra, you could say, insight as to what your specific resume, your talents are, I think could be helpful.
Mhm.
Because we're big on, certifications in general. I noticed you had a lot of certifications just when I was, snooping through the LinkedIn. So I just like to go over just some of them real quick and just say, wow. Several of them, Azure AI, SkillUp AI, Teams Administrator Associate, Microsoft 365 Fundamentals, Public Relations Foundations, a lot. So now there's one aspect where people will say, you have to get a bunch of certifications if you ever want to just even make it in the career world. What is your take on certifications in general how do you see the use of certifications when it comes to the interviewing, job finding process?
For sure. I would say I see certifications more as a resume booster. At the end of the day, if you know how to network, you will be able to find your next job opportunity. But if you are relying on the resume and more of the traditional way of applications, then having those certifications is a nice to have because it'll show that you're willing to learn, understand different technologies and invest in your skilling. For me personally, I just love investing in my own development because your skills are never going to be able to be taken away from you. Like you can get laid off, but no one can take away your skills. No one can take away your certifications because you've earned it. And I think that is something that you can carry with you throughout your career. So having those is kind of that credibility that builds into your professional profile. And so that's why I love to skill and I love to attend conferences. I love certifications. I just love learning in general. And I feel like those are recognitions of my love for learning.
Actually just had a conversation with another person about this. What he mentioned, even if I went to prison, they couldn't take my degree. I mean, that's an extreme example. But when it comes to like elevating your skills currently, before you even think about job transition, this is something that can help out where you're currently at, as well as, whatever future may hold for you, because it doesn't
Mhm.
go away once you learn those things.
I would say when it comes to skilling in general, just even getting the fundamentals is really important because for me, I entered Microsoft not knowing anything about our technology. And so for me, I was like, hey, a good idea is if I start understanding what are we actually selling? Why is it important? How does it actually help our customers? And so just getting all my fundamental certifications was a really good confidence booster because then I was able to start using our technologies in a new way and I started adding value to the team because I was a lot more tech savvy. I was able to build automations and different solutions. And so just having that kind of credibility and interest in the tech made me more valuable. And it also allowed me to deliver projects with higher impact because I could do it faster and I could do it in a more optimized fashion.
You still find value in the fact of, hey, let me still try to find other skills, other certifications to get while still serving in this role. You still find value in that, even though you already have the role, so to speak.
For sure. I think career complacency is one of the biggest mistakes you can have because in this changing job market, things can happen at any time. Nobody is irreplaceable. And we can already see the power of technology and where it can do things better than some humans can or with less mistakes. And so I think that's why it's really important for us to always be upskilling because we always want to understand where can we add more value, where can we deliver higher impact without necessarily killing ourselves, right? Like it's not about putting in double the hours. It's about getting double the impact with less time or with the same amount of energy. And I think that's what people are trying to understand and navigate right now because what got you here won't get you there. We can see it already. There's so many people struggling in the job market because they think that what's made them successful so far is going to keep them going. But actually, sometimes you need to rewrite the entire playbook and start learning from scratch and thinking about problems in a different way. Yeah, that's
So
actually where I love these kinds of certifications where you're understanding very important fundamental skills like leadership, negotiation, fundamental frameworks like change management, project management. These are skills you can carry with you in any job.
I think we've already talked well enough on elevating your skills. So most of our listeners are always thinking about job transition, right? It's the big thing
Hmm.
coming up. So I do want to talk transition a little bit more. We already talked
Okay.
with about the MSSA, but also just upskilling in general. You pivoted from sales to corporate comms. That is an awesome jump. Did that jump ever catch you off guard?
Say that moving to a new country, starting a new job, and all those transitionings happening at the same time, it was definitely a lot for me. And I was definitely overwhelmed at times. But I think having built the skill of adaptability, it wasn't as painful of a transition. And I learned the skill when I decided to study abroad for my last semester. And I basically put myself in an environment where I knew nobody, I had no connections, I had to start from scratch. And just from the power of networking, I was able to really thrive. And I ended up with a couple of job offers in Singapore because I loved it so much. So I applied that same mindset when I made the move from Canada to the US, from sales operations to corporate communications, and just everything like that. It's really about what needs to be done. What are the jobs to be done? What is in my control that I can focus on? And what is out of my control that I shouldn't really pay attention to, just be aware of, but not spend so much time getting anxious over. And I think the biggest thing that helps me adapt to all these different changes, no matter how big or small they were, was the power of people.
Yeah.
Really leaning into your support network, asking for help, asking people for advice, because there are people who have done what you've done or they've been on a similar journey. And so if you can tap into their knowledge and leverage it so that you don't make the same mistakes again, why not? And then in the future, you can pay it forward and help someone else. I think that's really the value of having a career network. It's absorbing this knowledge and wisdom, using it to further you in your career, but then also helping others and paying it forward afterwards.
No, so what I think I hear you saying is that it's a matter of not just leaning on what you already know, but leaning into meeting with people, making connections, making friendships, right? And then just seeing how like maybe those events can turn out sometimes proactively. Okay.
Exactly. And you just learn so much through others. And sometimes people don't make the time to network because they think it's intimidating or it's too much work. But I think as you're developing with organic intention and authentic intention, that's where the real beauty of the network comes out. It's not transactional and it's like, oh, you do this for me, I do this for you. It's just like, how can I support you in what you're doing? How can you support me? And it's just very beautiful.
One of the things I noticed from the veteran side in the conversation of crushing your transition is sometimes we make the assumption that people know what we're talking about. Like, I've known this very well from multiple conversations. Even I've done it myself where I know what an op word is. I know what a talk is. But if I'm just like, regurgitating only the things that I know, sometimes it feels like the other person is just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I think you already mentioned earlier that veterans have a lot of skills, but I think they have a hard time translating them. Is there anything that you've noticed as a way of, I guess, overcoming it, really, so to speak? Anything that you've noticed?
Yeah, I would say try to broaden your skill set. So, for example, the projects that you're working on within the military, and let's say you're interested in entering big tech. Try to understand where's the overlap. So if you look at like a big tech, like product manager, what are they caring about? They're caring about what the customers believe about the products. They're caring about the product roadmap. And then they're also caring about working with the engineering teams to deliver on the features. So then if you tie that back to being in the military, perhaps you're in operations or you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I orchestrate this team to complete this mission? And what are the different things that you can tie between this situation and the PM situation or the product manager situation? So I think it's really just trying to see the different connections and connecting the dots. And usually the best way to do that is just by talking to someone who's made the move before. So I think that's why on my blog, I have this Making the Move series. It's for people who started in completely different backgrounds. Maybe they were a teacher, a stay-at-home mom, but then they became a software engineer and a product manager or a VP. How did they do that? What were some of the things that helped them? I try to highlight their advice and their experiences in my blog posts so that other people can kind of take inspiration from it and then reach out to these people and be like, hey, I saw that you made this transition in your career. I want to do something similar. Do you have any advice?
I think what I continue to hear, not just from you, but from other people I've had this conversation with, is like, just don't be afraid to ask for advice or to like make a connection. I know that it's easy to say that, but I also know that there's a lot of fear in doing so and maybe a lot of hesitation. Did you ever have to deal with that fear at all of making that, initial connection? Or some people even told me it feels a little bit selfish for me to just reach out and ask this person because I don't know them yet, and I don't want them to think I just want a job. But have you ever had to deal with any of those fears, whatever?
I 100% did because when I was in university, I was absolutely terrified of networking. The thought of talking to an adult just, it gave me shivers because I was like, oh my God, people are so intimidating. But then what I decided to do was I volunteered and joined a sales team and I had to make cold calls. And as I made these cold calls, I was like, all right, this isn't as bad as I thought. Like I didn't die. Maybe I got rejected or maybe people hung up on me, but I'm still here. And the people who did accept and that I got to meet with business managers and leaders, they weren't so bad. Like they were cool people. I got to learn from them. And I think that's what really helped me overcome it. It was just going out there, meeting new people and putting myself outside of my comfort zone. And, in times of rejection, It totally happens. But the best way to overcome it is always have new opportunities. If you're always reaching out to people, you're always interested in learning and growing your network, there's never going to be a shortage of opportunity. So even if one person says no, you're going to have the next person say yes. And I think that's kind of the growth mindset I've had to embrace to overcome this fear of networking.
That's awesome. So at PM-ProLearn, the three things we care about is elevating unit skills while they're currently serving, equipping them to crush their transition, and even in corporate environments, helping them understand veterans and understand how to just retain veteran talent and any talent. And one of the things that we've noticed is when a veteran is like first out of their job, they're just scrambling, looking for something to hold on to. And
Mhm,
then after they find that initial job, sometimes they'll say, okay, this was a cool little placement holder. I'm going to go somewhere else. Right.
mhm.
What I've noticed with how Microsoft has done such a good job of putting investment into you and retaining you, and I get it, people go to different jobs, and I've seen, people at Facebook go to another company at work at OpenAI. But what I like to ask to you is, what have you noticed with Microsoft, if I can, on the things that they've done to invest in their people and things that they consider for retainment and long-term growth of their members?
Totally. I think one of the things I love most about Microsoft is their continuous investment in the people, right? They give us lots of opportunities to meet and network. Like we have a career hub, we have so many career networks, we have so many employee resource groups that we can tap into. So even if you're new to the company, you don't need to feel like you're alone on the journey. Like there's so many communities waiting to welcome you, and there's so many opportunities to network and join events and have a lot of fun. I like to think of it as like going back to university, but then, you're an adult now. And I think that's what really excited me about just having the opportunity to access all these different networks and these different communities. And then the next one is just the emphasis on skilling. Growth mindset is one of the biggest pillars of our culture. And that comes with always looking at how can you grow in your career? I have been very lucky to have managers who, encouraged me to go to conferences or get a certification and just continue upskilling so that I could become more well-rounded. And then because I get so much energy and excitement from their investment in me, I pay it back tenfold. Like I'm trying to add as much value as I can. I'm bringing my best ideas. I'm trying to go and add a lot of value so that my team is going to be showing up even better. So I think it's a cycle, right? It's a cycle.
Now that you mention it, I remember that my company, they've paid for me to get two other professional certifications since I've been here,
Wow.
one each year, So I came in with the PMP, they paid for my Agile, they paid for Lean Six Sigma.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, it's awesome. But it shows me that they actually care about me staying there too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. That's huge. I think you have one more thing that you're going to add. I didn't mean to cut you off. You just got me excited on that note.
One of the things I appreciate most about Microsoft is it's honestly the people. It sounds cliche, but like I have met so many high performers who are not just looking after themselves. They really want you to succeed too. They're willing to sit down with you, give you the harsh feedback if you need it, but they're also willing to walk you through things, help you become more successful, pay it forward, share their advice. I've met so many people like that at Microsoft. And it's why I'm passionate about paying it forward too, because I know not everyone else has the same access as me, the same privilege to the same network. And so anything I can absorb that I can share forward, I really want to do that to help others.
That's awesome. Karen, again, I just want to say thank you for joining us on the PM Pro Show. Everybody, just to let you know, Karen, she has her Substack and blog post called kkarenism. She posts often on LinkedIn as well. You can follow her there. Again, Karen, I'd like to just send you a little thank you note after this. And that concludes our PM Pro Show for today, everyone. Stay tuned. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and tune in again.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.